Hello again. Well, we've been talking about the basics of quilting, and now we're getting to the fun part. You need to choose the pattern for your first project. And you know what? It's important to choose the right one so that you can be successful. So stay tuned to discover how. Hi, I'm Wendy Haney, and I love quilting, which is why I started this YouTube channel, so I could share my love with everybody else and get even more people loving quilting. Okay, so choosing your first pattern. Yep, you want to be successful, so it's important that you choose the right one. So deciding on your first quilt pattern is going to set the stage for whether you fall in love with quilting or you throw in the towel and you get frustrated, you never get it done. And I don't want that. So I want you to choose wisely. So today I'm going to go through the 3 steps that I recommend you consider when choosing your first pattern. Size. Yep, the size of your project. We want you to be successful, so don't choose a king quilt thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to get this king quilt done for my bedroom. It's going to take you a long time. Yep, I'm being honest here because I'm a busy person. I have a lot of stuff going on, and it takes me a heck of a long time to do a king size quilt. So what I would highly recommend you do is choose something smaller. A table runner or a table topper would be perfect because that small, manageable, and it will get you to do the key pieces: cutting, piecing, seams, and binding. All the pieces that are the basics of quilting that we've been talking about, and you can get it done in a reasonable amount of time. Laptop or a throw quilt. Yep, I love lap quilts. I call them lap quilts. They're throw quilts. They're on the couch. They're snuggle quilts. I live up here in Minnesota, so if it's winter, I need one to keep warm. If it's summer, the air conditioning's on, and I still need one to keep warm. Everybody needs a lap quilt. And then there's also the baby quilt. So maybe you've got somebody coming up with a new baby pretty soon. Baby quilts are generally a little bit smaller than the lap quilts. So those are 3 project sizes that are really good to start with. I am a total fan of the lap quilts. Complexity. Yep. Don't pick something super complicated. I don't want you to be frustrated with it. Pick something that has simple, straight lines. No complicated matching of points. I would really recommend, something basic, maybe with some half square triangles. Otherwise, just basic square rectangular blocks would be the best. Also, a limited number of fabrics, because that'll make it a lot easier when you get to choosing the fabrics, and you'll have a better chance of finding colors and fabrics that you're going to enjoy working with and not feel overwhelmed with the fabric selection, which we're going to talk about next week. Also, larger blocks. You don't want a quilt that has all of these 2-inch square blocks. Even with smaller projects, that's a lot of cutting and a lot of time. Pre-cut friendly, you could definitely look at things. I would suggest, if you're looking at pre-cut friendly, look at something with fat quarters. Because what I'd really like on your first project is to do something that does require cutting. So if it's pre-cut friendly and you're using charm packs or jelly rolls and you really don't have to do much cutting, you're not getting an opportunity to leverage or to work on that skill of cutting. But with fat quarters, pre-cut friendly, easier to purchase from fabrics, and you still have to do cutting. The third, pick a pattern you like. Yes, this is important because if you're not a fan of what you chose, well, you're not going to keep yourself motivated to finishing it, and we want you to finish it. Maybe you picked one and it's a little bit harder than you were anticipating. No worries, you might just need a little extra wine to get through it. But don't cut when you're drinking wine. Yeah, bad idea. Otherwise, you'll be in good shape. Here are a few quilts and quilt patterns that I think could fall well into the realm of being good patterns to start with. And these are some that I've used over the years when it's been like, oh, I need to get several quilts done. I need something fast. And I love them. Mod Squad. This one is by Aardvark Quilts, and this is a twin size. A little bit bigger than a throw, I realize. It's 65 by 85, but you have minimal matching seams. Down here at the very bottom here, yep, you've got matching seams there, but in general, you don't. That's a positive to start with. It also has a lot of large pieces. Also very positive. Little bit on the negative side, it does need more fabrics to choose from. You need a total of 12. But hey, you know, for me, I just went and picked out a whole bunch of boutiques I liked. Go to your local fabric store and they can help out with that. So this one is, yeah, this one was a good one. Divided by 3. This is a table runner. This is a table runner I made for my mom. Oh yeah, and I made one for me because we love our wine. It's by Mountain Peak Creations, and the table runner is 21.5 by 43.5. I have a round kitchen table that seats 4 people, and this table runner fits perfect on the top of it. It's easy piecing, straight lines. You only need 4 to 6 fabrics, and it's a relatively small project. So this could be a really nice one to get started with. Then you can pick out colors that coordinate with your home, so you've got an idea of where to start. Just Can't Cut It by All Washed Up. Yep, I made this for my nephew Nathan when he graduated from high school, and he was going to be a music major. Very talented musician. This pattern comes in a variety of sizes. So you have one pattern and you can do everything from a baby quilt to a king size quilt. So maybe the baby quilt is the right size for you to start with. I started with the throw quilt. Easy piecing, and as you can see here, it works great with a focal fabric. So in this case, music. So I cut these primary blocks. I did a little fussy cutting, which means I cut them specifically so the music symbol, which I'm totally gapping on what it is. My nephew will be embarrassed by that. Anyway, it's the central focus of each of those primary blocks. It does have the requirement, not the requirement, it does, from the pattern, look for 6 fabrics. Well, I needed to get it done. I was struggling to find fabrics that I liked, so I went with 4 fabrics. And as you can tell, it still worked out fabulously. Love this pattern. Times 3. This is another Mountain Peak Creations. I really do like their patterns. They have a lot of really nice patterns that are fairly basic and straightforward. This one also has a variety of sizes from a throw quilt / lap quilt to a king. So one pattern and you can do whatever size you want. Straight lines, easy piecing. Negative, it does have a lot of fabric requirements, but you could get by with a lot less. Basically, they're looking for 3 accent colors, potentially a border, and then a variety of fabrics for these larger blocks. I do believe I went with fewer colors than they were recommending. So, once again, look at the pattern and go, In this case, I was able to use the border and one of the primaries as well. Love this one. This was a quilt that I did for my mom for Christmas. She loves birds. Take 5. Okay, I'm going to say it. This is my go-to quilt when I need to get something done. I need to get it done fast. And yeah, it just is. This is by The Teacher's Pet. And once again, variety of sizes from baby up to king. Straight line, easy piecing. Basically, you're dealing with one block that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of fabric in it, and you're just making that same block over and over and over with different variations of the fabrics. Then, well, that's the other thing. You only need 5 pieces of fabric. That's just primo. Go pick 5 pieces of fabric you like that coordinate, and you're good to go. And then all of these blocks, you can twist them and give a different look to your quilt completely each time you make it if you want. I'll admit, I have a tendency to end up with kind of the angle of the primary blocks in my quilt. I'm kind of, I like structure and organization and a unique look. But if you want it more scrappy, you just twist those blocks different ways. Lay it out on the floor and twist away till you get it just the way you want, and then start putting all the blocks together. This is one of my favorite patterns. Batik Diamonds. This is by Barb Sackle, and this is a lap quilt. It's considered a beginner level quilt, and it is pre-cut friendly. In other words, it is fat quarter friendly. Negatives, it does need 14 fabrics. Basically, it's looking for 7 lights and 7 darks. But you know what? When it's fat quarter friendly, it's a lot easier to start going through those piles of fat quarters at the quilt store and pulling out and matching and coordinating the lights and the darks of what you like. And the quilt store can help you with that too. I am a huge fan of batiks and fall colors, so this was one of my favorites to make. Now, this one, you will note though, you've got a fair amount of matching seams in the middle, and you're dealing with some half square triangles. But you know what? You got this. It works out. So might want to put this on your list of maybes. Where to find your perfect pattern. Okay, maybe you've been quilting for a while and you've got piles of magazines like I do. Well, when they start getting piled up a little bit too much on the coffee table, I set aside a night and start going through them and cutting out the patterns I like, or the patterns I go, oh, that'd be a really easy beginner pattern. Or I do quilts once in a while for our local Bible camp quilt auction, and I'm looking for things that go together quickly. So pull them out, and then I put these in binder sleeves and put them in binders. So I could go down to my basement and start pulling out binders and start flipping through them. Key thing, my neighbor, my quilting sister, and I have had mixed luck with magazine patterns. We often find that it's difficult, especially if the pattern has, a fair number of fabrics. It's sometimes difficult to identify, well, what color are they referring to in the picture? And going back and forth. And also, I think sometimes they don't necessarily have you cut it out the most efficient way either. You'll do want to make sure a lot of the magazine patterns do have a skill level identified on them. Pay attention to that, because sometimes a pattern looks complicated and it really isn't. So look for beginner level patterns. Also, check the size. Back to my neighbor who's working on a table runner that we found in a magazine that is so pretty, and you look at it, it says table runner, and so she starts making it. She is now almost done, and we're going, how the heck long is this thing? And we finally find the dimensions. This is a table runner that's like 84 inches long. Whoops. Sorry. Both of us have like round tables. I mean, mine will stretch out, but if I want it on my table like she would on a regular basis, it's not going to fit. So we were kind of surprised by that one. So pay attention to the sizes for those. Another place to go is free patterns. Just Google it online, free quilt patterns. And I've got 2 favorite places that I go. favequilts.com and the American Patchwork and Quilting site, which is called allpeoplequilt.com. Both of those have a ton of quilt patterns that you can download. Key thing, make sure you understand the pattern, read through it. And once again, I was looking for a simple table runner to be able to use in some of my upcoming YouTubes for a basic pattern to work with you with. And I'm going through one, I think I've got it, and it goes cut 40 2-inch squares, cut, blah, and I'm thinking, how about cut 2 2-inch strips, subcut into 40 2-inch. So it's one of those things that both the magazine and the free patterns are not necessarily going to give you the most efficient way necessarily of cutting. And that's something that's it'd be important to learn that very early on. And as you're used to using regular patterns and they're showing that, then when you look at a free pattern and it says cut 40 2-inch squares, you go, oh, we're going to make a couple, 2-inch strips and then we'll subcut it. Finally, this is actually the place that I'm recommending that you go. And I get it. Right now, COVID-19, pandemic, all this stuff, quilt stores are open. Just got to put a mask on, I'm sure. But you're going to be able to go in and get the help you need to choose a pattern. And these patterns, for the most part, are written well, will be used to providing you cutting instructions using the rotary cutter and the strip piecing method and a more efficient piecing. And so I would recommend, if you can, and I know a lot of you might be in the sticks even more than I am, where getting to a quilt store isn't necessarily possible. But you could also buy patterns online. The tricky thing with that is that depending on where you're getting them from, if you can see all the information on the pattern before you buy it. But lots of options to get a quilt pattern. Here's some final thoughts. Make sure you check if you need a special ruler or a tool is needed. So here I was. I've got this pattern. I finally got the fabric I needed. I'm going to make it for somebody, and I've got a free weekend coming up, and I'm ready to go, and this is what I'm going to work on. I open it up. I start reading through the instructions and go, oh no, it needs a special ruler. Of course, fabric store didn't have it. I didn't have it. Here I go, Amazon. Oh, it was going to take me a week to get it. So bummed. There went my weekend of getting things done. So pay attention to that so you're not disappointed like I was. Also, don't judge a pattern based on the fabrics they used for the model on the front. You'd really think that, they'd have the best ones, but you know what? We all have different opinions and different thoughts on fabrics and stuff we like. So, but with that said, ×3. I picked up this quilt pattern at a quilt store in Denver, and I'll admit I'd seen it, I looked at it and went, God, that's ugly. Sorry, Mountain Peak Creations. No offense, but it did not entice me to buy that pattern. But as I was browsing through the store, I happened to see a model that was made, and it indicated the pattern, and I'm like, wow, that's a really pretty quilt. So I went and bought it. I've now used this pattern a couple times. This was the one I used on the quilt with the birds, the chickadees, for my mom. But I also used it for a wedding quilt for my nephew. I had taken engagement photos and I'd printed some of those on fabric, and so I introduced those into the quilt. And then I also introduced an embroidered verse, and their colors for their wedding are baby egg blue, sort of, and yellows. I'm so pleased with how this one turned out. So, don't judge the front. Just saying. This is another one. Just can't cut it. Sorry. It just doesn't jump out at me based on what they used their fabrics for. But I could tell it was basic. I didn't need a lot of fabrics. And I knew it would piece up fast. And I had 2 nephews graduating from high school that year, so I needed to get going. And of course, I didn't decide to make graduation quilts till after Christmas, so now I'm really in a pinch. So this was one of the patterns that I chose for Nathan. And we talked about this one earlier. It does want, I think it was 1 or 2 extra fabrics, and I went with less. But this is another pattern that it just doesn't speak to me necessarily, but it goes together fast and I love it. Here's the thing. When you purchase a pattern, read it all the way through first. As I mentioned, then you'll get a sense of what it entails, fabric, what you need, where the fabrics are being used, where you can maybe go, maybe I don't need 8 pieces of fabric. What if I just do 6 and use the same piece of fabric here and here, like both in the border and in the middle. Also making sure you know if you need a special ruler or some kind of special tool, and then you're ready to pick out your fabric. And that's really fun. Well, I'll admit that can be stressful, but no worries. Next week, we're going to talk about picking out fabrics, and hopefully that will help you discover that it isn't as difficult as you might think. And it is actually something that can be learned to do, as I have over time. You don't need to think, oh, they've just got the skill of doing that. Nope. You can learn it just like I have. Take care. Go out and find that perfect beginner project. So next week, we'll be talking about how you can choose the fabrics for it and you're ready to go. Take care. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to stay up to date with all the new stuff I'm dropping, subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell icon. That way you'll be notified anytime I drop a new video into the channel. I'll be posting new videos every Friday morning with lots of great stuff that you aren't going to want to miss. I also would love to have you join me in my Facebook group. I have a private Facebook group that we're sharing things about life that I love. Quilting, needlework, machine embroidery, wine, books, a lot of fun stuff. So I'd love to have you join me over there. You can find it at facebook.com/group/lifefulfilled. I also can be found at the normal ways: Pinterest, Instagram, etc. You can find in the description below all the links of the places to find me, including wendyjhaney.com. If you found this video helpful, I would love to have you give me a thumbs up, drop me a comment, let me know what you'd like to see. Take care, and thanks for watching.